With 2024 closing, it's time to look forward to 2025. What can we see from Apple in the new year? That's coming up in this episode of the Macworld Podcast. Welcome to the Macworld Podcast. I'm Roman Loyola here with Jason Cross.
Good morning.
And Michael Simon.
Hello, sir.
We recently talked about the year that Apple had. You can check that out in the previous podcast. So it goes to follow that this week we're talking about the upcoming year and what's in store. It's going to be a lot coming from Apple in 2025. So we thought we'd cover it based upon kind of Apple's phases of releases, which happens in the spring, in the summer, and the fall.
Apple generally has basically 3 release windows. They have spring, they have summer, and fall. Summer is always timed kind of with WWDC. It's rare that it's WWDC and then something's a month later. That's fairly rare. So that's kind of what we're going to break it down by.
So what's the first thing that will probably be considered Apple's first major release of 2025? Is it?
Well, it'll probably be
18.4.
Well,
if we're doing software, then that's a pretty big one, and that's probably coming around March or April.
Right.
Probably around the time of an event.
A spring event.
Which will have other products that we'll talk about in a second. And the main thing that we expect that to include is the new Siri stuff, where it takes all the information on your phone and builds sort of a personal understanding of you individually, so that when you ask it questions that are sort of specific or general to you and your life, it will know what to do. And it has a million of what they call app intents, which are all the frameworks, the hooks that developers can build into their apps, so that Siri, when you ask Siri to do something, it can do it within the app. The same way that you can ask it to play a specific playlist or something right now, and plays within Apple Music.
The new Siri, it's not going to be like Gemini and ChatGPT, where you can just have like a straight up conversation with it. Like, it's still very constrained Siri in the sense that it does things, but it doesn't talk to you.
Yeah, from their demos, it sounds like it is similar to current Siri in the sense that it's like you say something, it gives a response. You say something, it gives a response. You can already kind of interrupt it and stuff. That was part of what was new. But it's not. You're not just going to talk to it about what's going on in the world, generally, whatever, because it is running on your device. The main thing is that it's going to look at it's going to be able to look at what's on the screen right then. It's going to be able to look at it's going to know what's in your contacts, your messages, all this other stuff, so that when you ask it something that's related to a text message that you got a few days ago or something like that, it'll know what you're talking about and be able to respond accordingly. And you'll be able to ask it to do something within certain apps that it will have hundreds and hundreds of things, right?
It's still more of like an assistant than like a chatbot. It's not
It's actually meant to be much more of an assistant than ChatGPT or any of these other things.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
The big deal is that it knows your like what's on my phone, personal information, and can hook into all your apps to do things, which is the weak point of Gemini and all these other things So it's good, but it's the first major Siri something in a while. Right?
Yeah.
We expect another big Siri update. The whole like much more conversational, all that other stuff. That's expected to be an iOS 19 thing.
19,
probably 19.4.
Right.
But that's coming. That's probably the first big thing coming from Apple this year. But there will be other big things around the same time.
We just got the 18.3 beta yesterday, actually. We're doing this on a Tuesday. That's probably coming, before. Well, not probably. It's definitely coming before 18.4. It looks like there's not a lot in it. It's probably just kind of a maintenance, pushing things along the road. And 18.4 will be a pretty jam-packed update, which they've done in the past. Apple's done those 0.4 updates have been, somewhat feature-rich in the past.
Yeah.
And if it's tied around the spring event, it makes sense to make it more of like a, like a major stopping point between iOS 18 and iOS 19.
It's also when Apple Intelligence stuff launches in the EU.
Yes, correct.
Which it's currently isn't available.
And they said April in the press release for that specific stuff for the Apple Intelligence in other countries.
I think that's all tied together. It's 18.4.
So it's probably 18.4. Probably April, which probably means this spring event will be sometime in April or late March.
March,
likely
yes.
April.
Either of those. And we think it'll be an event because there will be exciting new products.
Yeah.
Right.
There's quite a bit that's kind of tied to the spring time frame.
So iOS 18.4, I could see coming out a few weeks before that event. Then they highlight.
Maybe not. I mean, they've done that. They've also done it the day of. They've also done it a week later when the product shipped. Like, who knows how they're going to time that?
From what we've heard, it will have a really long beta period. Or at least developer beta period, much like I think 18.1 did, where 18.1 was like in beta before even 18 went wide release. Like, same sort of thing is supposed to happen. Like, before 18.3 even goes to wide release, 18.4 may go into a developer beta because they're going to have all those hundreds of app intents, and they developers need to start integrating them into their apps, testing it with the new Siri. They need the time for feedback and get that stuff fixed.
Yeah.
All that stuff's got to happen before they can release it wide. So it may have like a really extended beta period where it goes into developer beta before 18.3 even comes out.
Yeah, probably very early in 2025 is when they'll start, that stuff.
So the spring event will probably feature a new iPhone SE. Would you guys say that's the marquee product? Yeah,
I think we can the most solid product.
Yeah, if you want to bet on futures in Vegas on Apple stuff, that one's pretty solid. You're gonna get like 50 cents on the dollar, but you won't lose.
Yep,
and it's a big update. Yeah,
because the last one disappointingly still has that sort of iPhone 8 body.
Yeah, it's crazy. The iPhone SE 3, third gen, was disappointing in 2022, and they're still selling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It upgraded the main chip inside, which is the piece that needed the upgrading the least,
right.
And none of the other stuff. So this upgrades all the other pieces. It's going to feel like an iPhone 11 or something like that. It's going to have not the dynamic island, but it will have notch. It'll have a full screen display, Face ID, all that modern stuff we expect. And it might have two cameras. It might have, the back might also feature a wide angle, an ultra wide.
Yeah, there's somewhat conflicting rumors on that, but it
could
finally have a second. It'll at least be a better camera if it's only one.
It wouldn't be crazy just to think, it's just basically going to be an iPhone 12 with like an A18 in it, so it can run Apple Intelligence. And that's pretty much the way you can think about it.
Which isn't bad for assuming it's around the price, $429, $449, $479, whatever it is.
Probably going to be a little bit of a price hike, but it'll still be the most affordable iPhone.
I mean, they increased the price of the last one for really no reason at all.
Yeah, I know.
It went from $399 to $429, and no one quite knows why, because they didn't get much new. But so for the first time really ever, the iPhone SE won't have a home button, because all three models have so far. And it'll be, I wonder what Apple's going to do now with the iPhone 15 and 14 that they still sell, because those cost $599 and $699. Like, do they get rid of that? Because it's going to be very close to those. I mean, you'll get the dynamic island versus a notch. You'll get a newer chip versus an older chip. More, I mean, because the SE is going to have a better processor and run Apple Intelligence when those two don't. So does Apple just jettison the old iPhones and just focus on that one? I don't know.
At least an iPhone 14, you think they would.
Right? Because it's only it costs more, and you're essentially getting less.
Yeah, the iPhone 15. Now you're into Dynamic Island and OLED, and so there's a few pieces there that you could see why they would think that's enough of a leap. Yeah, it kind of really obsoletes the iPhone 14.
It does, yeah.
Which is not a bad thing. Like, we want the cheap iPhone to be good.
Yeah, I'm all for the SE. I just wonder if they get rid of that $599 model, at least for the rest of this year. And then the iPhone 15 becomes that in September.
So we also expect a couple iPad upgrades. We don't have the iPad Air needs its upgrade, right?
Yep.
Is it still waiting on a M3 or whatever?
No, the Air it's waiting on an M3. So the Air got an M2 this year.
Right.
The Pro got an M4. The Mini got an A17 Pro. The only one that didn't get updated this year is the standard iPad, the basic iPad.
Right, the standard iPad didn't get an update at all, but
they got a price cut, but it didn't get a new processor.
Yeah, but when did the iPad Air, the M2 iPad Air come
May.
out?
It was with the iPad Pro, so I think that was in May. Right. So it could get an M3. It's possible. As
everything else goes up a step.
Yeah.
The iPad 11, we don't expect much other than an upgrade to the A18, so it can run Apple Intelligence.
Right.
We don't expect other.
It's been a couple of years since that was updated, but that's their base model. It already has a landscape camera. That was the first one to get that. So now it has the new USB-C Apple Pencil, works with that, so you don't have that weird dongle thing anymore.
Yeah.
So it should be just a spec bump, so it can run Apple Intelligence in March.
Yep, that seems like what it is, and the iPad Air is also just a spec bump, just because hey, M2s are a couple of years old now. All the high end models have gone to M4, so we can make the Air go to M3. Just pretty much just like last year.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Apple's weird with the iPad kind of cadence.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Sometimes it's annual, sometimes it's 18 months, sometimes it's several years. Like, we just don't know.
The regular base model iPad was totally annual for so long, and then just skipped the whole year. This is the past year. So who knows? And then speaking of just chip bumps, MacBook Air needs its M4. We're still waiting on MacBook Air.
I don't know if that's going to be the spring or that's going to be more WWDC, but sometime in the early part of the year, first half of the year.
That and Mac Studio are kind of those question marks where it's like, is it spring event? Is it WWDC? They could fall in either line there,
and the Mac Pro also has that, so they still have M2s.
Yeah,
the Studio and the Pro have M2 Max and Ultras, so they're, like, I don't know what, like,
they skipped
like,
Ultra.
that's Apple's most, and that's Apple's most demanding user base, who actually need as much speed as they can possibly get, and they just skipped a whole generation. It's interesting.
Yeah, those early 3nm chips, I think, were just way too expensive. The yields were really bad. So trying to make a double joint chip that was of their biggest chip and stuff was just going to be like this super expensive nightmare. We do expect them to make an M4 Ultra, if for no other reason than we've really heard that all of their cloud AI stuff is going to be based on M4 Ultra. Right now they're kind of in a holding pattern with the chips they have, and then M4 Ultra is how you're going to have private cloud.
The Mac Pro only comes in Ultra, so they have to. If they're going to update that
at all,
they have to.
If I remember correctly, the MacBook Air came out in March of this year, outside of the event.
Yeah, it was just a standalone situation.
Yeah, released by press release.
Yeah. So the Air, the SE, they work together. Maybe an AirTag 2. We've heard rumors about that as well, with some extra privacy stuff. And
I think the latest rumor on that was it's going to be later in the year.
Okay. So, those two things, maybe the iPad as well. They work together. I'd be surprised if the Studio and the Mac Pro, also were jammed into that event, because they don't really work thematically. That's probably either a standalone thing or WWDC.
And then the big sort of question mark new product that is so far said to come in the spring is what people are calling HomePad.
Yeah.
But basically, it's a 6-inch, more squarish screen home display that you would be able to mount on a wall or put on a stand or something like that. That is meant to have widgets kind of like your iPhone in standby mode, just showing stuff as it goes on, and then be a smart home control, slideshows in your Photos app, FaceTime, basically a competing product to the Echo Show or the
Google
what
Nest.
is it, Home Hub?
The Nest Home Hub, yeah.
Nest Home Hub. Sort of a competing product of one of those, except less speaker, which makes you wonder, are they going to make a speaker for it to mount on? Or
like a dock, yeah.
Yeah, a dock, or is it going to just put a HomePod mini next to it? I don't know. but because it's meant to like mount on a wall as well, it's expected to be this kind of flat thing, like a pad.
Right. Yeah, that's obviously a new category. A fairly big change for Apple, who they've really not ventured too much into the smart home space. They have the Home app, which is really good. They adopted Matter, and they work with some third-party accessories. It's gotten better over the years. It used to be fairly stringent requirements hardware as well, and that jumped that up the price, and not many people made them. Now it's much more friendly and easy for third-party manufacturers to make cameras and plugs and switches and things. But this is the kind of thing that would really kind of propel them into the home. I mean, it's crazy to say because we all have iPhones and iPads all over the place, but there's not really like a central home device like an Echo Show or a Nest Home Hub that people can kind of put somewhere and use. Like the Apple TV isn't it? Like, no, it's fine, but that's
not going to turn your TV on every time you just want to mess with your smart home stuff.
Exactly, right. So it's not really that. So this is a big deal. I'm curious to see how they market it and how they build it and how they, like pushes this whole smart home thing.
Forward. This is expected to be the first of several products kind of over the next 2 or 3 years where Apple's expanding further into the smart home market, making their own stuff, not just having a home app. So,
right, like camera, maybe an indoor camera.
Yeah, stuff like cameras that do AI stuff locally and save stuff locally instead of pushing everything in the cloud. They need to upgrade HomeKit Secure Video a lot.
Yeah, it's not great.
It does what it says, and it stores video locally, and it doesn't let everybody else get to it and stuff. But it's got a 1080p limit, and there are a decent number of 4K cameras out there in the world now. And it has a limit of like one person can be viewing the video at a time. So if you have multiple people with their iPhones and they're trying to look at your living room camera, it's only going to play for one person. And stuff. So there's needs to be some upgrades to that. All that stuff may be part of what Apple does as it moves into the home space more.
Yeah, and their whole privacy security push obviously plays into all of this, as Jason was just talking about with the HomeKit stuff.
It's going to be that plus AI. That's going to be their secret sauce, right?
Yep.
So then after a spring event is the summer, and that's highlighted by WWDC. And at WWDC, they usually focus on the operating systems. So we'll get a look at iOS 19, iPadOS 19, macOS, insert location of California, landmark here, 16.
macOS Glendale.
So
whatever.
And everything else. Apple showcases the operating systems, and since that's all in-house and doesn't involve like third-party suppliers or anything, we don't have any rumors as to what to expect from the operating systems.
Just two rumors so far. One is that similar to the way Apple Intelligence was like a multi-stage rollout, iOS always has some major features that come in an update, 15.2 or whatever, the .2 update. We're told to expect more of that this coming year. There will be iOS 19 will have more features major features that get rolled out in updates after core iOS 19. And the other is
I'm on board with that. for several reasons.
Just be transparent about it, and it's fine.
Right. Just tell us at the beginning, but take more time to work on and make sure they're right. And it also, rather than getting just a crush of new features all at once, you can gradually get them over the course of the year.
Right.
I think that's a smart move.
It's also easier to teach users how to use new things when they update their phone and there's one major card staring them in the face saying, this is a new thing, and not 20 of them where they just start going, next, get away. I'm trying to get to Facebook.
Right.
I want to look at my Instagram. I don't care.
Right.
The other thing is that it's going to be a big push to a continuing big AI push. This is a real major upgrade to Siri that's going to operate more like what you're seeing out of some of the large language models out there now. The advanced voice mode in ChatGPT or something like that. So it's much more conversational, much bigger, which begs a bunch of questions about how much runs on device and so on, and what's in the cloud.
There was a recent report that said that at Apple, their kind of rhythm of how they develop the operating system is kind of thrown out of whack because of Apple Intelligence. Because when Apple releases the OSs, they're on to the next one. But this time around, they still need to work on the upcoming AI features, the Apple Intelligence features. So the work on the upcoming OSs is kind of being delay's not the right word, but it is somewhat on a back burner a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, the latest from Gurman says that they're like taking resources from iOS 19. Now that doesn't mean anything because we don't know, first of all, how it worked last time around. We don't know how many resources. We don't even know what the schedule is for iOS 19. So to say, he throws around the word delay and maybe, but we don't actually know because we don't really know what iOS 19 is going to be yet.
Yeah.
Right.
It will come out in September in some way, shape, or form.
There'll be something called iOS 19, and we're told to expect more of its major features to be released in updates over time.
Right.
And so, WWDC will be on that. We'll get our first look at the betas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there'll be, iOS 18, iPadOS 18, macOS 16, visionOS 3, tvOS, all of them. And as Roman just said, we don't really ever know what's in it. We knew Apple Intelligence was coming. We didn't know it was called Apple Intelligence, but we knew an AI thing was coming in WWDC. Apple actually kind of said it themselves numerous times because their stock was dropping because they weren't doing AI stuff. So they had to. But otherwise, features and stuff, WWDC is the one Apple event a year where it's actually a surprise. Because
it's all software.
Because it's software, right?
Doesn't leak out as much,
right. So,
and even when it does leak out, you don't know how it'll look or work,
right? It's hard to conceptualize it. Yeah. Because we'll always hear about this feature or that feature, and then but there's not really an explanation of how it works or how it appears, and so when we actually do see it, it becomes a surprise, even though we've heard some inkling about it. So
it would not surprise me if that was also a place where Apple sort of lays out its vision for smart home, just kind of, and that's where it starts to talk about how future smart home products are going to work together. Maybe there's a giant upgrade to the home app as part of iOS 19.
I mean, that could be where the HomePad makes its appearance. Apple's done that before. HomePod came out at WWDC actually. So
the rumor
out of possibility.
The rumor for HomePad was the spring, but it could just as easily be. It's a rumor. There's, like we said, there's future products, more smart home display type things like HomePods, like a HomePod with a display kind of a thing. There's a new Apple TV 4K expected to be released next year, and that may have an A18 so that it can run Apple Intelligence stuff. What does that look like on your TV? What does it do? What do you need? Same thing with a HomePod Mini 2. There's supposed to be a refresh to the HomePod Mini. In that case, I'm not sure. I can't imagine it's going to have a chip capable of running Apple Intelligence the way current things do, because you need at least an A18. A current HomePod Mini runs on Apple Watch hardware. I mean, old Apple Watch hardware.
Old
like,
Apple.
Right? And it's got to be $100. Like it can't be expensive, but they may find a way to do something else, or it could be, hey, it doesn't need any of the image generation stuff or writing tools or anything.
They have that cloud-based privacy thing. So maybe a slightly better chip, some internalized changes, and then that could be just enough of Apple Intelligence that it needs to be considered part of the family, if you will.
Yeah, but whatever if they're releasing something this year that's not just new colors, it's going to have to work with all the hot new Siri stuff they talk about at iOS at WWDC.
That's obviously the big thing there. Yeah.
Yeah. So they need something.
I mean, I don't know, Jason. Maybe I'm just kind of dumb to this stuff, but I don't like you wouldn't need 8 gigs of RAM in an A17 Pro or A18 Pro chip to just do the Siri stuff, right? Like the real intensive processor stuff is the image generation.
Right. So there's two sides to that. Is the image generation is a big model. The writing tools and stuff could be a big model. Anything where you do big blocks of text and stuff. But we're expecting Siri and iOS 19 to be this big conversational thing that's smart. So and just very personal and natural and realistic.
Mm-hmm.
That may all be in the cloud anyways. That may not be able to be something they can put on all the iPhones. But what it's going to need to do is that semantic model stuff that's coming out in 18.4, the stuff where it understands your personal semantic model and things about you and everything. And
I mean,
all those hooks into your app.
Now, right?
Well, not
like it recognizes my voice when I'm speaking.
It recognizes, it can recognize your voice.
It's my stuff. Like it
but if you say, but if you said something like, what time do I need to leave to the airport to pick up my mom? It's not going to look through your messages and say like, oh, you had a text message with this person and that's who your mom is. And they were talking about their flight. This is the flight number. And I'm going to look up that flight number. And this is when it comes in. It can't do any of that. And that's what iPhones are supposed to be able to do. iOS 19 is going to be even more advanced. We would expect to be able to kind of have those same queries and conversations with our HomePods. If we ask it to do stuff that it has to do within an app, it should be able to say, oh, it's this person talking. I'm going to tell their iPhone to do this within the app, right?
Okay. Yep.
So it needs to be that if it's going to be a new product. You don't expect the $100 HomePod from 3 years ago to do this, but you would expect a new one too.
For sure. Yeah. And it would almost be like, really? Like if it came out and it didn't have anything.
If it didn't do any of that.
Like it has to in some way.
Yeah. Those are kind of all new products that could be at WWDC. They could be a little later. It could be part of a whole home AI.
Maybe they just preview the
vision.
HomePad there or something and it ships later. They've done that before too.
Yeah. Or a new HomePod with a screen or whatever. Could be cameras, whatever it is they're going to be doing. We may see some previews of that kind of stuff at WWDC. Or at the very least, just a layout of the vision of it and a new home app and some new tools for developers to make smart home stuff really smart.
And, it seems like Apple's like way late to this party, but like the whole smart home landscape hasn't really improved much.
No, it's been a mess.
Over like 5 to 10 years. It's like, so for example, my dad called me on Saturday. He was doing his Christmas lights and he has an outdoor smart plug that works with his Alexa. And he's like, it's not working. And the only advice I can give him was, well, disconnect it and reconnect it. Like, that's it. Like, that's the solution to all this stuff. And if it doesn't work, do it again.
Yeah.
Like, there's no troubleshooting. There's no real smartness to it. The whole smart thing is that it connects to Wi-Fi. That's really it. And you can say, like, you can ask the speaker to turn something on. Like, but that's it. So if Apple were to really make these things, like, integrated and smart and, like, the whole Apple Intelligence thing, and you're having a conversation and everything's working around you, like, it could really be somewhat groundbreaking. We'll see.
Yeah, there's actually a lot there in the home app in automations that I don't think anybody really good. A lot of people don't use those automations, but they're very clever groups between that and shortcuts. You can
Yeah.
you can make pretty complicated, like, hey, when this happens, automatically do these other things. But
Yep.
it almost feels programmery. It's way too fiddly for the average consumer.
Mhm.
And if you could talk to Siri and tell it that you want it, hey, every time I come home, turn on all these lights or whatever.
Right.
Instead of trying to do it with the interface and make an automation or something. I think that's the kind of thing that could take Apple to the next level, make smart homes smart.
For sure. And, a lot of people, so like my dad, we were talking and he said, well, can I do this because I was telling him about that I just switched over everything to HomeKit over the last 8 months. He's like, oh, can I do that? I'm like, well, yeah, but you got to buy all new stuff. That's the biggest problem here is that there's no incentive to build like a HomeKit house because, it's not all that much better. It's better because Apple, the interface is better. It works smoother. But if Apple were to really kind of give you a reason to upgrade your plugs and your lights and your switches and your cameras to HomeKit, to have this whole system or Matter, to have this whole system that works, and really integrates together, and it could be great. We'll see.
Google and Amazon have reportedly pretty much backburnered all of their work in this field because it doesn't make any money. Like they can't.
That's the other thing. Yeah,
practically giving away Echoes and Nests at cost. Yeah, essentially to try to get people into those platforms, and it's turned out that getting people into those platforms is not valuable.
It's not right.
And
everybody has one, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Right, and now what everybody wants is Matter. They want the platform free version that works with everything, and then they can't convince anybody that there's a version of an Echo or a Nest or something that's worth spending more on, where they can start making a profit. Whereas Apple has a brand where people are willing to spend more. Yep. Like they can go ahead and sell a smart home security camera with their 30% markup, and make that nobody else can, and people would pay more, right?
Yeah, and if the HomePad is real and comes out this year, they're going to sell more than probably Amazon sold Echo shows last year.
Yeah,
in a couple months.
Oh yeah, if it does FaceTime, it's over.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Like Amazon does calling. I'd love to know how many people use it. It's got to be in the low 1% that actually use their Echo Show to make a call to someone in their contact list.
So maybe
are we only on in June? We still have the whole.
So that's how long is the show? So that's the summer. Maybe some smart home stuff. All the operating system stuff, and then maybe those Macs that if they're not in the spring, they'll be
right, like the Mac Studio.
The Mac Studio and
the
maybe
Mark.
An update to the displays as well there.
Yeah, I think Mark Gurman said late spring, early June for the Mac Studio.
Yeah, I mean it's all first half of 2025,
right?
Whenever they feel like it, and also the Pro Display and the Studio Display are pretty overdue for an upgrade as well.
Yeah,
which makes sense alongside the Studio and the Pro. So we'll see about those as well.
Well, the Mac Pro, Gurman reported that it won't happen until later in 2025.
Right.
So that sounds like
that. I read all that stuff too, but it just seems strange because so later in 2025, as we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, we're probably going to get the M5 chip, and so the Pro's going to get an M4 Ultra, alongside the M5. Is that? I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
If you're the kind of person who in any way needs an either a Mac Studio, a higher end Mac Studio, because those can have the Macs, or a Mac Pro, then the entry level M5 isn't a big deal for you.
Right, that's right.
You want, I need 128 gigs of RAM. Right? So it could be something like that. It'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah, maybe they'll change the name of that and they'll make it like what Intel does, like the Xeon or something. Maybe they'll call it something separate so it won't have to align with the M4s and the M5s, and we'll see.
Well, even when Apple released the M3 Max, so the M3 base, the M3 Pro, the M3 Max, they were still slower than the M2 Ultra. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, like
marginally.
the
Not a
single
ton, but a little
core
bit.
CPU speed was faster, but they
Right.
didn't have as many CPU cores, as
Right.
many GPU cores, as
Right.
much memory bandwidth. So it's still going to be faster. And
Right.
that's
So
definitely going to be true of an M4 Ultra versus like
an
a base
M5.
M5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking more of like an M5 Ultra
Yeah.
than an M4
Yeah, but
Ultra.
that's going to come out, if anything,
Right,
like
a year and a
next
half.
fall.
Right. That's next year if it happens.
2026.
Yeah. So
You're always chasing the next big thing.
we always get the new iPhones, in the September event, the fall event. That's the iPhone 17, and we're supposed to get some new.
Yeah, this is like
what
a big
people are
one.
calling. Yeah, so what people are calling the iPhone 17 Air. I don't know if that'll be the actual name.
The whole thing, like this, the first time, like it's gonna really be different. Jason can take over from here because he just wrote an iPhone preview, but
So
big things coming.
Yeah, so regular iPhone, and then iPhone 17, and then iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max are all expected to still be there. But the iPhone 17 Plus is expected to kind of be out of the lineup, and in its place, this new super slim model that makes a series of compromises to be 6 millimeters, which is like even thinner than going back to the iPhone 6. It's like the thinnest iPhone ever. It's going to feel even thinner because it's large. Right. It's going to be larger than it's going to be almost plus size, right? And it's going to have all the iPhones are expected to get an improved face camera. The front-facing camera should be 24 megapixels or something, but it's going to have like one rear camera. The rear camera is going to be centered in a sort of pill-shaped cutout, almost think like a pixel, like a bar across the top, instead of in the corner. Which the camera's been in the upper left corner of the back of your iPhone since iPhone
1. Yeah,
right. So to put it in the middle across the top,
Apple's like trademark thing.
Yeah, that's like a huge change. That might also be on all the iPhones. All the iPhone 17s might be going to that. I kind of hope it does because I hate how they wobble putting them down on the table.
I agree with that.
Just I just want it across even. But yeah, so there's going to be some compromises. Like in other countries, it may not have a SIM tray, which means it can't be sold in like China. It's they're still working out how do we make this thin. That's going to be an all new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other ones, again, first new design. It's might look different for the first time in like a million.
Yeah, since the iPhone 12. I mean, really, you can go back further, but the iPhone 12 brought the flat edges and the notch. Oh no, it already had a notch. It brought the flat edges and the stainless steel and the new. It was newish, at least compared to the 11.
This feels
but
like
this is going to be totally different.
Probably the biggest change since iPhone 10, which were totally revamped, but iPhone looked like, and set the pace for the future. And then in terms of sort of technology, a new A series chip that's a little faster and does Apple Intelligence and stuff. Some iPhones, starting with the iPhone SE, but maybe fall iPhones as well, the regular ones, not the Pros, may have Apple's own cellular chip, which nobody knows or cares about who has the cellular chip in their phone, but it just means no millimeter wave.
As long as it works, it has to work, obviously.
It has to work. The push is to make it more energy efficient. So it might actually be better because nobody's sitting there going it's 20% less megabits on my download speed. People don't care that much, but they do care about battery life. So it could be that.
Right.
The front cameras are all getting upgraded to 24 megapixels. The rear cameras are all 48 megapixels. There may be more. The telephoto on the Pros might be 48 megapixels now, or maybe just the Pro Max. Some model of iPhone 17 is supposed to get a physical aperture, which is a thing that if you go way back to the old days of Windows phones. Yeah, I think there was a Windows phone, a Nokia Windows phone.
Sure.
And there was
I remember exactly.
It was crazy,
it was an insane camera,
for the time, yeah.
Right.
that might come to one of the models, but other than that, we don't really have a lot of information about what the 17s will bring.
So here's a question. Let's say there's the iPhone 17 Air with a single camera, a 19 processor, super thin design, and the Pro with 3 cameras. Would you consider the single camera model for the design?
To me, it would depend on how much battery life am I giving up for that super thin, right? Because I don't care about the A19 versus A19 Pro, like that level of performance improvement. Like they're all so stupid fast already. Like I don't really care.
Sure.
That's not impacting my day-to-day life. I'm not chasing thin.
Right.
I don't hate thin.
Right.
But I'm not going to give
on
up 2 hours of battery life.
Matter, but when you hold it, thin matters.
Yeah, but I'm not going to give up 2 hours of battery life for it. Right. So it really depends on what do they have to give up to be that thin. We'll see. That's a big we'll see. I bet some people, I mean, it'll be more, it only has to be more popular than the iPhone like 16 Plus.
Right. Which by all accounts isn't very popular. I actually have one, but most people don't.
My wife just bought one too because she just likes the bigger size. And
Me too.
This year,
and I didn't need a Pro this year.
You don't need the Pro as much, but
unless you want that the telephoto. That's it.
But they want to either push people to the Pro or give people a reason to buy that one. At least it's something interesting in iPhone hardware for the first time
that's the big
in a while.
I wonder if it'll be like the iPhone 10 where it'll be a distinctly different looking model than the other ones.
Yeah, that
like
would be
all
the really
stuff
curious
we're reading
thing.
About the camera bar and like will it just be on that model and it's going to look completely different and then next year they'll move everything over.
And
we'll see.
Apple has like a sort of like, are they going to do the same thing they did with iPhone 10? Like they brought out iPhone 8 and iPhone 10 together, right? And they still sold the 8 and they had that as this more expensive thing, but they said, this is what all the iPhones are going to be like in the future.
Right.
This is just the first. Right. We're skipping a number and we're going to 10 and this is what they're going to be like. And is that the idea here? Are they going to not call it iPhone something Air? It's going to have its own name and they're going to go like, this is the next 10 years of iPhone, right? We'll find out in September.
And then that September event is also an Apple Watch event.
Yep.
Yeah, not the rumors are thin about the Apple Watch right now. Maybe blood pressure monitor, but we're not hearing anything about like crazy new designs or wacky new features or anything.
It's been, I mean, the Apple Watch is what it is. There's not a ton that changes year over year. I mean, what can they really do with it? It's mostly a screen. It's pretty thin. It's extraordinarily powerful. It's got a ton of features. I mean, they could just add more stuff to it. Like Jason said, the blood pressure monitoring is something that they're exploring.
Switch it to flat edges, make a different kind of band connection, like make a break with band compatibility to do something with the band. I mean, but we're not really hearing that necessarily this is the year they're going to do all that stuff. So who knows? Yeah. Right now, the rumors there's not really any solid rumors.
We don't get them usually until, I don't know, for whatever reason, those don't leak as early as iPhone stuff, probably because they don't have to ship them to 20 different factories. So we'll hear about that probably in the spring, but someone will have some breakthrough report. But I'm not expecting there to be much.
The last breakthrough report about what the new Apple Watch would be was totally wrong.
That's true.
They did give us a so slightly thinner model, ever so slightly thinner, but it's the same.
You can't notice
thing.
It only looks thin on the billboards.
Right. Yeah, you have to really zoom in. Yeah.
Right. You're right.
Do we expect any AirPods Pro or AirPods?
I mean,
stuff this
it's
fall
been a while.
too.
AirPods Pro, even though they're great and they keep getting updated every year with really, really good software updates, including the hearing aid stuff this past year.
Yeah.
They're going to be 3 years old soon.
Yeah. The persistent rumor we hear is that the next AirPods Pro, whatever they are, is going to start to incorporate more health features.
Yeah.
And there's been no indication that that's a this year thing. So maybe it is later this year or maybe not, but we haven't heard anything about that yet. So it wouldn't surprise me if we didn't have those this year. They really need a new AirPod Max. that kind of supposedly this last update we got, which was just to switch to USB-C, is because they decided to cook the new version more. Hopefully they're making more changes to it.
Yeah, it needs a total rethink. Listen, they're really nice, but they're heavy. They don't have wires. The new USB-C ones, you can't listen wired with a wired connection. Like there's flaws that need to be addressed.
Now we can talk about, I guess,
Mac time.
So that'll come later in the fall, usually like early November-ish. And
This
we'll
is
see the
a couple
M5.
years in a row now. They've done late October, early November Mac releases.
The rumors are pretty consistent about M5 series MacBook Pros coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Do we expect the Mac Mini to get updated, or even the iMac? The iMac, they've skipped generations before.
Skipped the generation, and then now it's done two in a row.
Yeah.
The Mini, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. It's a cool little computer now. I mean, I think the way Apple approaches it, like, does the M5 matter to sales? Is a new chip gonna spur sales? And when it comes to the Mac Mini, I don't think it matters.
And I think part of the reason
fast.
they didn't do these things with the M3 generation is because M3 was made on an earlier 3nm process that was expensive. Part of what makes this second gen 3nm process that all the M4s and the A18 chips and stuff are made on better is that it's just a more affordable, like each wafer out of the fab is less costly and higher volume. So if they're kind of still in that zone and not jumping to this really advanced new 2nm process, the rumor is they're not, then yeah, we could just see an update because they'll be able to make an affordable M5, right? But because that's their low cost computers, the iMac and the Mac Mini.
Yeah. The Mac Mini,
cost computer.
Yeah, but the MacBook Air getting the M4, that won't get an M5 until the following year. They're all over the place with their schedules.
Yeah, there have been some rumors about a bigger iMac, but they haven't really. It doesn't seem like they get any traction either. It always seems like Apple's working on it. But
honestly, if Apple's going to release a big screen anything, just give me a studio display. A 32-inch studio display is far more practical than a 32-inch iMac at this point.
Yeah, it's like 32 inches.
It's more right. It's more versatile. You can hook it up to whatever you want, and it's not tied to a computer.
Here's what I want. Yeah, I want that, and I want them to say, all right, so a studio display inside is like an iPhone. It's like got a whole.
Yeah, right. There is
but it has. If it had a wireless chip in it, it could be an Apple TV.
Apple TV, yes, for sure.
It could be a standalone Apple TV.
That would be excellent
thing. Just please do that.
Yeah, I'm on board with Jason's idea. I'll buy one of those, Jason.
Right.
Let me know when it's available.
A 30 or 32-inch studio display.
It's excellent. That's excellent. That's
pretty much just like what we have now. We need HDR. We don't need 120 frames per second high frame rate stuff, but we do need HDR. And just like it has, you could buy an Apple remote and press the button, and it flips over from your Mac's input to being just Apple TV.
I have in my dining room, I have a Samsung M8, one of those things, which is basically like a smart monitor. So I have it on it's on my wall. It's on a little VESA mount, and when we eat dinner, we put it on. And that's what it is. It has all the smart stuff built into it. I can access Apple TV Plus and all this stuff. And I just use it as a TV. It's a computer monitor, but it has all that stuff built into it. And Apple, I'd love to replace it with an Apple version because it's Samsung. It's not great. Yeah. It's okay. It's slow. It's clunky. But
and if you think about the mics and speakers and camera in a studio display, then you think Apple TV has FaceTime. Like this would be that would just be the most killer. It's also the most killer dorm room accessory of all time. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like this is your computer monitor. Like everyone just uses their laptops, but that would be worth having because it'd be big enough for you to kind of sit back and watch TV.
Yeah.
FaceTime from a distance.
It already has the FaceTime camera in there. It's got spatial audio. Yeah. No, I agree. That's good stuff. I'm on board with that.
Are they making that? I don't know.
No,
But
we haven't heard anything about it. Probably not.
no.
But yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, but we always hear about.
That's as good as a standalone Apple TV with Apple Intelligence. Like,
every now and then we just
stuff.
hear about larger iMac, larger monitors, updated monitors.
Yeah.
They do need to kind of update the Pro Display XDR.
The Pro Display is very old. Yeah, that doesn't even have ProMotion. It has all that color calibration, but it doesn't have 120 hertz.
It's about color calibration, and it's really about being able to keep that peak 1000 nit brightness for sustained periods while you're like working on content. So it's got all this sort of like heat dissipation and stuff to keep it doing that. Probably time to make one that has higher peak brightness.
Are we getting another Apple Pencil?
Number 5.
If we are, we're not getting rid of one of the existing ones.
Right.
That's
yeah. No, I think we're done with new Apple Pencils. They'll probably get rid of the first gen at some point. Like when they update the 10th gen iPad, maybe they'll get rid of that first gen model. And even the second gen could go too, to be honest. USB-C and the Pro are the only two that you really need.
I think the idea is that those exist to consolidate around for the future.
We did not mention Vision Pro. We're not expecting any new product releases.
I mean, I don't
next year.
Not based on what we're hearing. I mean,
even the best rumors say 2026 is the release of potentially a cheaper Vision product and a new Vision Pro that is a more expensive, updated version.
I would like to see at WWDC something that is, like really gives people a reason to be excited about it. Like
software wise, Vision OS 3 to be just like, wow, that's everything we wanted, and it's a bunch of cool new stuff. So we'll see about that. But smart glasses are like years away.
Yeah, we're
still VR headset with pass through is what we expect for the next ones, and those aren't even until 20.
I don't know if we're doing predictions on this call because we've been talking forever, but
okay.
I think the iPhone 17 Air, I don't know if Apple will actually come out and say it, but the iPhone 17 Air seems to be like a prototype of sorts for one half of a folding device.
Okay.
In the sense that the current iPhone, and we see it with the Galaxy Fold, it's very thick. Apple's not going to come out with a 16 millimeter phone. They're just not. But if they can get that down to 6, when you open it, when you close it, it's like 10 or 11. I think that's something they would do.
12. But
12, well, at least. But right. No. Well, yeah, this one. But if you make that a little bit thinner down the line, one half of a phone, you get
it makes sense that they're they're doing a lot of engineering work around thin, in part because they need to double it up.
That's what I think that's happening here. Yeah,
that's a good prediction for
not next.
We might see
2026.
Foldable stuff.
We'll say,
some foldable
and I think
stuff.
We'll look back and say, oh, now I know why the iPad Air was 5.2 millimeters or 5.3 millimeters because now it's 9 or 10. Yeah,
right.
But I do have a prediction for next year.
All right, let's go.
I think that maybe more than one of Apple's C-level executives will leave the company.
Okay, like a major one you're talking about?
Yeah, like a major one. Like there was speculation. It wasn't a rumor. There's speculation that Johnny Srouji would be an ideal candidate for Intel's CEO position. I'm not sure he wants to go into that hellfire that is Intel right now. There are several executives that seem to have been there for a while and maybe ready to move on. With that in mind, I think maybe I could see maybe Eddie Q going, you know what? I'm time to move on.
I don't know. Eddie Q likes his Apple access.
He does like his app. He does like his access, the access that it gives him. So, but that's not based on anything. I'm just making that up. So just to be clear, it's not like I talked to Eddie Q on the court side at the Warrior game or anything like that. So, but so that's my prediction that one or two C-level executives are going to leave the company.
I'm going to predict that Apple is going to launch a new service this coming year.
Okay.
And it might have to do something with their smart home. But I could see them, I don't want to call it alarm monitoring or something, because I don't think they're going to get into anything like that much of a physical security thing. But it would not surprise me if there was some Apple's push into smart home and new smart home products were accompanied by some sort of service that will be rolled into Apple One, or you can buy it separately, and it does something that has something to do with your smart home things.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we already see that with like every single smart home company has some kind of an add-on service for that stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that makes sense. Maybe part of iCloud Plus, because it comes with the storage and everything, the video stuff.
Yeah, it could be something like that, but I think it's going to be a branded, named, separate thing, like Apple Home Plus or whatever, some kind of thing.
Is Apple going to do anything with CarPlay ever? Like we had this big push last year.
They have, what do they have? Like 2 weeks left for a car to be released with the next gen CarPlay. They have a lot left to do with next gen CarPlay. Like it's not even out yet. So I think 2025 is the year that next gen CarPlay starts to appear, and it's just going to be in luxury cars. I think it doesn't solve the problems that car makers think that it needs to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I'm on board.
Car makers want your data,
right?
And they want not to have to develop a bunch of interface stuff and all that.
Yeah.
And it solves the interface thing, but they have a lot more work to do about like, what are my different control surfaces and where are they and what size are they and which things go where and all that other kind of stuff. Like next gen CarPlay is a lot more to integrate than old gen CarPlay, which is like, give me a rectangular control surface and it maps from the phone there and you're done. That's
right.
So I think we're going to see it in that Porsche Taycan. We're going to see it in a couple of other things, some Mercedes and stuff like that. But we're not going to see it very many places, but it's this year that'll happen. And I don't think we're going to see much more. There'll be a CarPlay update as part of like iOS 19. Well, it's just going to be like more kind of mapping features and stuff like that. It's just not going to be anything.
Yeah. I went car shopping recently, and so I test drove just a Hyundai, the 2025 Hyundai Elantra hybrid.
Yeah.
And like this is what the cars are now. They're like all screens. Yeah. Like the whole entire dashboard is a screen. And I was looking at it. It was pretty good. But I don't know why they like Jason said, like the car manufacturers to partner with Apple. I don't know how it would really benefit them, because they all have now teams of software designers that are working on this stuff for better or worse.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea. I think the renders are gorgeous, of course, because it's Apple. But I think it probably will be relegated to cars that I can't afford. That's for sure.
Yeah. And they all still need to do all of that software work, because if you don't have CarPlay, it needs to look good and do things.
It can't just be for Apple people. Yeah.
I feel like the companies like Tesla and Rivian that have made software-defined vehicles from the beginning, and by that I don't mean your in-dash thing. I'm talking about like controlling the software for every microcontroller throughout the entire car, right? Like they've always been like, yeah, we're just controlling the entire software experience. But like now we see GM, like the world's biggest,
right?
They're not the world's biggest car manufacturer, but like going, no, we're not doing CarPlay anymore. And if anything happens with CarPlay this year, it's going to be another thing like that. It's going to be another major auto manufacturer deciding we're not going to do CarPlay on future vehicles. We're just going to make our own software that you'll hate, but we don't care.
No, I know.
Because we want to sell you a service. It's another excuse to sell you a service too. They all need a cellular connection, and they don't want to let you use your phone cellular connection that you already pay for through CarPlay. Yeah. They want to sell you a $15 a month subscription. So
I mean, CarPlay in its current form it's almost too good, and car makers were like, "Well, wait a minute, like we don't want like everybody does it because it's so far superior to." The one that's in your car already in every way. So I'm
rely on the car manufacturer, they don't get a
Right, they don't
cellular
get all their
subscription
stuff. Yeah.
with a little bit of juice added on top, and they don't get any of your data, which is really what they want. Yeah, I think it's going to be a bad year for CarPlay in the sense that next gen CarPlay is not going to take off in the sense it's not going to be everywhere. It's going to be on a few luxury vehicles, and I would not be surprised to see a major car manufacturer ditch CarPlay again, like GM did.
Well, on that note, we're going to ditch 2024. That does it for this episode of the Macworld Podcast, episode 914. Thanks to Jason Cross.
Thank you.
Thanks to Michael Simon.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks to you, the audience. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to the Macworld Podcast in the podcast app, on Spotify, on YouTube at the Macworld Podcast channel, or through any other podcast app. If you have any comments or questions, send us an email at podcast@macworld.com or contact us through Blue Sky, Facebook, Threads, or X. Just search for Macworld and look for the blue mouse logo. One programming note, we're going to be taking the rest of 2024 off, and we will see you in the new year. See you next time. It's just that it's cold here in the office. For some reason, the air conditioning's running.
Oh, jeez.
So
What?
Yeah, I don't know why. Luis came in and he has like what are they called? Is like a thermal gun where he can point and get the temperature.
Yeah, I've got one of those.
Yeah, he was
those
like,
are great. Get one of those. Those are like
and they're not that expensive, right? Now I want to get one. And he's like, yeah, it's 57 degrees. And I was like, what? Yeah, I need to get one of those. Does it work on people?
Not really.
It does. It does, but it's not an accurate measure. It's only an accurate measure of your skin surface temperature,
right?
Which is not the same as taking your internal temperature.
Yeah.
So the ones that they make specifically for people are calibrated to adjust from your skin temperature to your internal. So it does work perfectly fine on people, but it's only measuring what you think it's measuring. It's measuring the surface you point at.
But I want to get one of those.
These are great.
Now.
These are for is your air or heat working? Your stove? Is the pan hot? These are great. They're like $25, $30 on Amazon. It's one of those things that like there's like 5 things in your life that run on a 9-volt battery for some reason. They just always, right? It's one of those things. I've never seen one that they should just be rechargeable or something. Like, let me just plug in a USB and charge it, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things.